Hello, I'm Yusuke Morita. I'm here again with my colleagues from University of Washington. I have a quick question for you. How has the principle of the student development and climate helped you understand your students and learning?
Well, my classes are very big, ranging from 300 to 600 students. While there's always a few students in the class who are comfortable asking questions or offering answers to questions that I have asked, the vast majority of students remain silent and they never say anything during class. I was a very shy student myself, so I certainly understand the impulse to stay silent because you can stay safe. It's a way you never risk being wrong in front of literally hundreds of other students. However, now that I'm an instructor, I know how crucial it is for students to explain their thinking to each other and to me to aid their learning. Because not only do they get important external feedback on the accuracy of their reasoning, but the process of putting together an explanation helps them form connections between disparate topics. And this is, of course, essential to developing mastery of the material. So I wanted to make sure that my class was a safe place for students to both ask questions and to answer questions, and also to be wrong. So to do this, I started using clicker questions in my classes, and I employ best practices from the education literature to frame them in my presentation. The key thing first is to only ask for feedback on the questions once the students have thought about it on their own and then had a chance to discuss it in groups. This gives everyone a chance to put their thoughts in order, and this is especially important for shy students and for multilingual students. Second, I will occasionally call on students randomly to offer feedback on the question, but I never ask them, what is the answer to this question? Instead, I ask them to describe what their group talked about. Students are also free to pass on the question if they feel uncomfortable, and there are no points associated with their answer. And finally, I only respond positively to what the students offer, even if the question or the answer to the question is incomplete or a little bit off base. There's usually something partially correct that I can build from. The student response to this has been fantastic. There's always a lot of spirited discussion after the clicker questions, and the students seem more comfortable offering their responses than they have in previous classes. Also, it seems like I'm getting more spontaneous questions from students who wouldn't normally raise their hand, which is really great.
My classes are middle size from 100 to 180 students. The most important thing for me is to establish good communication with students in order to build a rapport with them. This allows me to easily converse with students during class to make sure they are staying engaged. For example, during group activities in my class, I monitor and facilitate student engagement. When I find a student who doesn't seem to be engaged in group learning, I can rely on my rapport with the student. I talk to them and try to promote them to re-engage with the group. I also use the review sheets, which is a private messaging function in our LMS in every class. Using this function, students can provide comments after the class, so I can check the status of my students and see if any issues need to be addressed. By using these strategies, I'm trying to create a friendly atmosphere. I like to make sure that each student feels comfortable contacting me in case of questions and when they need help. Also, it helps the whole class establish a collaborative learning community.
So in our Center for Teaching and Learning, we teach interdisciplinary courses for graduate students about various teaching topics. Our students are from a range of departments, they have so many different kinds of life experiences, and really varied teaching experiences. So it can make talking about something that can make all of us feel vulnerable, just teaching, kind of challenging.
So the two things we do to create an inclusive environment in these courses are to put statements of inclusion on our syllabi, and we also create ground rules with our students that we use to establish a classroom environment that includes all voices.
First, we begin by putting a statement on our syllabus that explains that this course values the learning contributions of all students, and that we respect the many differences among us, which may include, but are not limited to, cultural background, disability, ethnicity, family status, age, gender, citizenship, race, religion, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status, and more.
Then at our first class meeting, we discussed ground rules for classroom interaction. We asked students to discuss in small groups what classroom practices help their learning and create a space for productive and inclusive discussions. We create this list of ground rules together in that class. We record it and post it on our course website. And we return to the list at several points during the course for everyone to reflect on how things are going, what needs to be changed, and what we might be missing.
We find that using these two practices, a syllabus statement and establishing ground rules, helps us take a big step toward our goal of creating an inclusive classroom environment. So, the key takeaways from this video are: 1. Students develop intellectually and socially through various stages while they are in college. 2. Intellectual and social identity development, as well as classroom climate, all contribute to students' learning. 3. Instructors cannot control students' development, but can control classroom climate. These reflection questions are to help you think about how you can connect the principle of student development and classroom climate to your own teaching and your students' learning. We hope that you will consider these questions and discuss them with your colleagues. 1. How might your classroom environment impact your students' learning? And 2. What strategies can you use to create a classroom environment that helps all your students learn? So let's look back at the goals we set out in the beginning of this video. We hope that the principle of student development and classroom climate has helped you better understand your students' intellectual and social identity development, to understand course climate, to understand how climate and development impact learning, and to identify strategies that can promote student development in a productive learning environment. As before, we hope that this and the other videos in this series help you take findings from the research on learning and apply it to your teaching. Thank you.